Hello and welcome ProITians. We have covered the chapter on storage, right? I mean, we covered the various options that Azure provides on storage, right? Now we are going to start a new chapter, which we are going to talk about Azure Compute Services. So in this, we are going to talk about what are the options, various options that Azure provides for computer service, right? One of the common things which we have learned in the earlier sessions was about virtual machines, right? So that is one of the compute options that Azure provides, right? Apart from that, there are some other options such as containers, the app services, the serverless services, right? So all those things we are going to cover in detail, right? As you know, I mean, there are three basic categories of services that are provided by Azure. One is like your Azure infrastructure as a service, and then the another one is platform as a service, and then the other one is application as a service, right? So this chapter and coming few sessions, we are going to delve into these three categories, right? Great. I'll see you in the session then. Thank you. Welcome back, ProITians. So in this session, we are going to look at what are the options that we can get with Azure, right? The compute service options, right? So Azure Compute Service provides the infrastructure you need to run your apps, right? And as we have seen in the earlier sessions also, Azure Compute Service can be broadly divided in three categories. That is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and application as a service, right? It can also be referred as a software as a service or functions as a service, right? So Azure Compute provides on-demand computing service that facilitate running apps in clouds, right? And computing options that Azure provides are virtual machines, containers, Azure App Services, and Azure Serverless, right? Let's check what are the various things with Azure, right? So let's start with Azure Virtual Machines or Azure VMs, right? So as you can see in this diagram, we have two different things, right? This one is your physical representation of the hardware, right? And on that you can actually use the guest virtual machine, right? There are two different types of architecture which you can use for the virtual machine. One is where you utilize the hardware, and then you have the hypervisor layer on that, and then on top of it you have the guest operating system. The another one is your hosted architecture, where you have the hardware, you have the host operating system, and on top of that you have the hypervisor, and then on top of that you have all your virtual machines or the guest operating systems sitting on hypervisor. All right. So virtual machines are server that simulate a physical server, right? So it will simulate a physical server. Okay. So for me, if I will not make it will not make me a difference whether that server which I'm actually remotely connecting to is, if it is a physical server or a virtual machine. So it's actually going to simulate as a physical server. So VMs utilize the hardware layer, right? This one, and provides virtual CPU, virtual memory, virtual storage, and virtual NIC. So it will utilize all these things: virtual CPU, virtual memory, virtual storage, and virtual NIC, which are actually available at the hardware layer. A guest operating system can be installed on the virtual machine, separate and totally independent from the host operating system. So you can have your virtual machine running right here or here. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So you can have your own guest virtual operating system, right, on that virtual machine, and this virtual machine will be isolated from the another virtual machine, and it will interact with the hardware over the hypervisor layer, and that is part of the host operating system. Right? So that's how the virtual machine works. Right? Now let's move to the next section, that is containers. So in containers, you might have seen my previous sessions, or you can actually feel free to go and look at my previous sessions. So containers are preferred way to package, deploy, and manage cloud applications. Azure Container Instances offer the fastest and simplest way to run a container in Azure. Okay, and just like VMs, containers can be used in order to run apps in the clouds. And benefits of containers: containers don't own an operating system. Okay, that's actually a very good point. It's actually a very lean system to run your applications. So because since it's a lean system, it actually starts in milliseconds. You can restart a server, or the container in the image part of your container in milliseconds. Okay, so containers use far less storage. Okay, those are the things which we are going to look at in practical in the coming sessions. Okay, so before we move to the next one, let me actually brief you what is a container. So container is a modified runtime environment built on top of a host operating system, yeah, that executes your application. A container doesn't use virtualization, so it doesn't waste resources simulating virtual hardware with a redundant operating system. So container typically makes the virtual machines lightweight, and this design allows you to respond quickly to changes in demand or failure. In case if there is an outage in an application, and if you want to rebuild the application, it's just quickly you can actually redeploy the existing image to a new environment and get your application and operations up and running. Since containers are secure and isolated, you don't need a separate servers for each application. Right? Great. Now let's move to the next one, that is Azure App Service. Okay, so let's have a look. So Azure App Services enables you to build and host web apps, mobile backends, and RESTful APIs in the programming language of your choice without bothering you to manage the underlying infrastructure. It offers auto scaling and high availability. That is something which you're going to look at in the coming sessions, how it works. So it actually offers you the auto scaling and high availability, and it supports both for Windows and Linux. It enables automated deployments from GitHub, Azure DevOps, or any Git repo. Yeah, as you know, there are like GitHub, there are other Git repos which you can utilize. Okay, and Azure App Service is an example of PaaS offering from Microsoft. So as you know, we have seen those three categories, right? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and application as a service, right? So app service falls under the category of platform as a service. Okay, with Azure App Service you can build web apps in the programming language of your choice, be it Java, be it Python on Linux, be it ASP.NET, anything. You can actually build on that. Yeah. So alright, let's move to the next one, that is about Azure Serverless Computing. Okay, so Azure Serverless Computing is the abstraction of servers, infrastructures, and operating systems. Okay, with serverless computing, Azure takes care of managing the server infrastructure and deallocation of resources based on demand. Serverless computing enables developers to build applications faster by eliminating the need for them to manage infrastructure. Yeah. So infrastructure doesn't come under the responsibility. It is always managed by. It will be managed by Azure, Microsoft. Yeah. With serverless application, Azure automatically provisions, scales, and manages the infrastructure required to run the code. right? So you don't have to reserve or you don't have to plan for a reserve capacity. It will automatically happen. And so serverless computing encompasses three ideas. I mean, there are three basic concepts which are part of your serverless computing. That is abstraction of server, and event driven scale, and micro billing. So we are going to cover all these things in the coming sessions. But yeah, I mean, this is just to give you an overview of what we're going to come. What are the various things, various compute services that are provided in Azure, and what are the things that we are going to cover in the coming sessions. All right. So let's take an example here. I mean, I've given you the brief chart which we are going to look at in the coming sessions. So let's look at an example where you have to do the migration or a new build of a server in the Azure environment, right? So in case if you want to migrate a server, I mean, from your local on-prem or from other cloud, then you would actually follow with this path. And if you want to build the environment, then you're going to follow this part, right? And then let's consider an example that you have to migrate, right? So it's going to be lift and shift or cloud optimized, right? So if it's going to be cloud optimized, then we will follow this path, right? But if it's in the case of lift and shift, then we'll see if it can be containerized. If it can be containerized, then we'll check if that needs to be orchestrated. If it needs to be orchestrated, then we will have the Azure Kubernetes service. And if it is not, then we'll go with the container instances, right? If it is not required to be containerized, then is it something that we have to go with the web API apps, that is ASP.NET, Node.js, and those things? Then we can actually go with app services. If no, then we can go with the virtual machines, right? So this is a very high level overview when you are planning to architect your deployment in Azure cloud, right? All right, great. Let's move to the next one. This is the link which you can use to watch the other videos in this playlist and watch the documentation at Microsoft. Yeah, that's all, guys, for now for this session. I would request you to please subscribe on the channel and click on the bell icon to get updates real time. And also, if you're liking the videos, please do click on the like icon. And in case if you want to post your comments, then please feel free to do so, and please feel free to share these videos with your friends and colleagues. All right, great. Until next time, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.